Hi, welcome to today's episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat. I'm Karen Scott Green,
And I'm Kat Hardrick.
and we have the pleasure and the honor to be here today with Dr. Imwata Kiari, also known as Kevin Washington. He is a doctor of uh, counseling and psychology. He is the founder and CEO of NIASPRO, Empowerment Works Unlimited Counseling Consultations, and the past president of the Association of Black Psychologists.
All
Thank
right.
you, Dr. Kiari,
Woo!
so much for
Thank you.
joining us. So just a little background. We met this brother a couple of weeks ago at a cafe in Lithonia, Georgia, and we were so captivated with the conversation that Kat and I both looked at each other and were like, we've got to have him on the show. We've got to have him
Yeah.
on the show. Because we started talking about Black men and mental health. And as everyone knows, Kat's passion is mental health and being a mental health advocate. So, welcome and thank you. Um, Tell us about the work that you're doing and let everybody know about the Association of Black Psychologists and the work that you're doing with your organization as well.
Well, good. Thank you. I'm one of the past presidents of the Association of Black Psychologists. It is an honor to be here with both of you all. It was a good conversation in the cafe. I hope we can recapture the synergy of that moment. The ABCI started in the late '60s, '68, to address the marginalized population of African people of African descent folks, and so it is an organization that's been pushing to make sure that the issues that we have as people of African descent are brought to the fore. And so it's an honor to have been a president of that organization, as well as I'm currently the president of the World Mental Health Coalition, which is a world
Mm,
organization that actually deals with the dynamics of mental health around the globe. So pushing for global discourse around geopolitical concepts and mental health. So what's happening with individuals that are encountering what's going on in Gaza, what's going on with the political
mhm,
structure uprising in Burkina Faso or Mali and Niger,
mm.
with the election in Venezuela. So we take this approach to look at global politics and leadership and mental health. So it is an honor to have been asked to serve as the acting president of that organization by the founder of that organization, which is Dr. Bandy Lee, who is a profound a psychiatrist in her own right, doing some great work. And also, I'm serving as the president of what's called the Black Mental Health Matters, which is an organization that started by the brain the brainchild of a brother out of Kenya. His name is Daniel Mabonu, and
Mm.
he tagged me to serve that. So again, it's a global discussion that we're having around mental health. So I'm just honored to have been pulled into these leadership roles or asked to serve because it is an honor to be able to serve. And so that organization makes sure that we know the Black mental health matters globally. What's happening with basically treatment of folks, what's happening with people that look like us in a context of postpartum depression and so forth. So we have a
Yes.
very cultured look at the mental health. So we have people, again, he's from Kenya, Nigeria, Brazil. People are, again, it's a global organization. So I'm just excited to be a part of this global movement to look at Black and brown folks in the context of mental health.
I'm glad you brought up global because one of the things you were saying how people are affected around the world with wars and all this other good stuff, that not good, all these other challenges. When COVID happened, the African Americans in China were forced out of their homes and their apartments and where they were living because they were black and was treated so horribly because they were black, as if they were the reason of the um, COVID, you know,
Right.
and everybody was still trying to discover that. So I think it's very necessary to even think at that level. Like you just blow my mind away when we had the conversation about the impact of everyday life. And like in my world, it's just like immediate impact that has made me walk my own personal story that has made me walk into this space. And I got my sister over here, Karen, to help me navigate through things. My question to you, What brought you to this space? Why do you do what you do? What's your why?
Mm. So the why is varied, right? So part of the why goes into seeing dynamics of mental health within my family and not
Mm,
wanting to be one of those individuals, right? So
mhm.
like, well, he went to college and he was fine before he left, and he took some stuff to make him stay to be able to study for the dental exam, and he wasn't the same sense. So it was like,
Oh my
whoa,
God. So everybody has that story in their family, right? Somebody went
yes,
someplace, somebody put something in their
mm,
drink, or somebody hasn't been
that's
right
it.
since they went to college,
Oh,
went to the
well,
army.
Mhm.
isn't it what it's
Mhm.
called? Well, that last part though, for real. But the other
Hold
part,
on.
the
Don't go
Mickey.
there yet.
Well, you
Oh, but
slipped me a
hold on.
Mickey.
Yeah, the Slippy and Mickey, right? And so that's a common discourse. So we can even talk about the hair conversation, right? The other common narrative among us is mental health, the discussion around grandmother, aunt, great grandmother had a hair that I could brush and comb and blah blah blah. What was she? She was Cherokee. She was Blackfoot. So
Right.
we have these common narratives. And that's part of what led me to the field is understand how not to be that person. But also, another part of the story is here's the truth, the facts. A friend of mine's father had this beautiful artwork in his house, and I wanted to know. He was from Haiti. He had this, I mean, just beautiful artwork, and I wanted artwork in my house as well. So I said, "Well, what did your daddy do?" 'Cause I was slick enough to know that I had to do what he did to have what he had, right? So I said,
Mm,
"Well, my dad is a doctor." Well, I knew we call him Doctor Briere. I knew that part. Then I said, "Well, what kind of doctor?" And he said a gynecologist. So I didn't know what that was, and I researched it and I saw it. I said, "Okay, I'm not going to become that, but I do want to become a doctor."
Right.
And so that started me on the path of thinking about mental health and a doctor. And so I couldn't figure out what it was I was going to do. I was looking at a yearbook from Grambling State University, where I actually attended and graduated from Grambling State University. My parents did also, so I was looking at one of the
mm,
cousins' yearbook, and I saw this major psychology. I had really no idea what it was, but it just said, "That's it, right? That's the thing that I'm to do." And so I thought about judging, lawyering, and other things like that because I was always asked to be the mediator between
mhm,
siblings that they got into fights when I was a child and that kind of stuff. So it was very common for me to be a problem solver, and so I thought that probably was the judge lawyering was the thing until I saw psychology, and then I pursued it, and then I realized that it was a very uh, white-minded discipline, right? And that's a
Mm-hmm.
whole nother conversation. And at that
Mm-hmm.
point, I became disenchanted with the field. Then I had mentors like Dr. Wade Nobles, Dr. Naeem Akbar, Dr. Linda James Myers, Dr. Marimba Aini, who were in the field or on the periphery of the field, showing us something. Dr. Robert Williams, right? And I was observing their work, and I was
mhm,
challenged by what they were saying. And so that's how I ended up staying in the field. And those people that I mentioned are associated with the Association of Black Psychologists. So it was when I went to the convention of the ABSI and I got a chance to meet these brilliant minds who were saying that, yes, this is what they talk about in the discipline. This is what we do. That I realized that there was something else to be done. And that's been the work that I've been doing is how do we do the work in a manner that makes sense to us, and so see ourselves as a global people is very important first, and to be able to understand that we have a population, as you mentioned about China, that we are seen as the enemy to a lot of people globally.
mm,
And the reason why that is the case in part is because we must have something to offer, because you don't attack that which is weak, you attack that which has strength. And so that's what we tend to bring out in the context of mental health service delivery, is recognize that we're not weak, we're not less than, we have some great strengths. And how do we
yes.
bring those strengths out to be able to manifest and to be as we have been born, ordained to be and to become?
So,
I
Did
know
I
that's
answer your
right.
question?
uh,
Yes,
and
you
you
did.
did.
And then
And doctor, can you speak to how important is it, or is it important to have a mental health professional who either looks like you or who has a background similar to yours, you, you're being the patient, the client, who can understand what you may be going through as far as racism, discrimination, police encounters, the things that we've had
Culturally
to deal with culturally. How important is that to have a psychologist who can
Mhm.
identify with the experiences that you are grieving over as you're sitting there talking about these experiences and how they're impacting you on a daily basis?
Mm. So you actually have two phenomena going at one time, right? One
Mhm.
is somebody who can understand. That means
Okay.
that they don't always have to look like us, but also the importance of cultural matching in the context of mental health service delivery. That also is an issue, right? So my dissertation was on dimensions of perceived importance for mental health for psychologists, African American psychologists to become counseling psychologists. Right? So the question was, what's important for us to go to graduate school to earn a degree to be able to come out as psychologists to do the work? Because
Mhm.
we importance in cultural matching in the context of mental health service delivery. I'm teaching a class right now for of students around multiculturalism, which is also a challenge for me. And I tell them about it that multiculturalism is a force at some level, and I'll explain that to you. Teach,
Okay.
and none of them are black or brown. So so
Ah.
my so not I'm not teaching them to be more human. I'm teaching them just about the dynamics of what role does culture play in the context of service
Mhm.
delivery, so that they can at least have some awareness of it. Because I realize also that we don't have black psychologists all over to serve everybody's need.
This is
Right.
true.
We're only about 1 or 2% of the entire population of psychologists in this country. We have just a few thousand of them that exist, and we have 100,000 people that need help, millions of people
Mhm.
that need help. So it's not going to be a good match there, right?
That's right.
So what do we do in the interim? So we find ways to connect. But the multiculturalism thing is a farce because it talks about the issue of multi, but multi is basically the cultural other, right? And so what we have is that we if it's multicultural, it will not just be Asian Americans and African Americans and Latinos and Latinx and indigenous population, but it would be
Mhm.
it'll be Polish American, Irish American, Russian American, right? It'll be those populations, but it's not. It's so it is white as one culture, and then the cultural others. So it's really not
Ah,
Yeah.
multicultural.
got you.
It really is simply it's simply they are culture, and everything else
Mhm.
is other.
Is
And
other.
Mhm.
Okay.
so the otherness is what they do. So that's why I say that I'm really, I teach the course, but I teach it in the context of saying that culture is more than simply talking about Europeans, whites being the thing, and that we are here to teach them how to be human. I'm not here to teach anybody how to be human.
Mm.
I'm telling folks about the facts about life and how things operate, how things function. As my mother said, how to cow eat the cabbage. That's our responsibility. And then if you want to get on and be human, you can try that. But right now, I haven't seen any humanity that really comes from a certain population. So we're not teaching them to be human because they have
Mm.
to decide that for themselves, and
Yeah.
their
Mhm.
humanity is not necessarily in my benefit, right? To my benefit, because in order for me to be psychologically normal in the context of what they see as good is for me to be out of my mind, right? So
Wow.
so in order for me to be accepted by a certain population, especially those that have been leading psychology, in
Mhm.
order for me to be accepted as somebody that is safe, that is good, I have to be unlike myself to be liked by
Hmm.
them, which means I have to be a phony, a fake, an imposter. So there's a whole new
Yeah.
notion of an imposter strong. Have to
Because
be something else other than that.
in order for you to be acceptable, you have to be meek, you have to be mild. They have to feel as if you are non-threatening.
Right?
You
So
kidding me, girl? You better stop saying
being
that.
who you
And
naturally are, and I say this because my oldest son has a very big voice. He's a big guy. He's like
that's where I was
six.
going with this conversation. I was
He's
going there.
6'2",
Yes.
dark skin, and he has a very big voice. And I remember telling him, I
Yes.
said, "Your voice is is big, and you have to be conscious of that when you go into certain spaces, because you will frighten people. So just, I'm not saying mold who you are. I'm just saying just be conscious
Be
of just
aware.
who you are and how you appear and how you show up is going to frighten some people.
And
Right.
it's sad because, Doctor, I want you to chime in, but you are right, sister. My family member, they 6'7". My parents are they big. And
Hmm.
when you walk in the room and you wonder like, why can't I get a job? Because the person that doesn't want to hire you is afraid that they're going to be the same person that has to fire you. They're
Yeah.
intimidated. They're not going to bring
Right.
somebody on board that they have a sense of intimidation from. And that's just and so society has said when we look ourselves, that's a threat. When we wear our natural hair, it's a threat. Something's wrong with you. And I believe I shared the story about one of my therapists years ago when the lock situation came out with the sister girl in Alabama. She couldn't get a job and went all the way up to the appellate court, and it said they shot it down that this job could fire her or not hire her because of her hair, right? And that's how everybody started doing that crime movement. Well, my therapist couldn't understand what the
Why
problem
that was
was.
important. Yeah.
And so, I don't see that person anymore, right? Because
Right.
how can you even relate to how what I got to go through every single day just walking in this skin? And I had a boss to tell me, what on earth will make you wear your hair like that? I said, are you jealous, Mr. Comb Over? Because they got them four little. And I was insulted, and it's just unfortunate that people want us to look like them. The closer you are, and Lord knows I'm not prejudiced. None of us are prejudiced. None of us, and we've got to make sure we say this so don't nobody think that we're preaching hate, because we're not. What we're preaching is everybody should be treated the same no matter what your skin looks like, because we all cry the same and we all bleed the same and we all gonna transition one day,
So,
period.
Mm.
however I show up in the world, in whatever skin tone, in whatever hair texture, my hair may grow out rather than down,
Mm-hmm.
that should be acceptable. Big voice, small voice, all of that should be acceptable. And I shouldn't have, wide nose, thick lips, all of that should be
Yeah.
acceptable. And I shouldn't have to put myself into a little box, or my son shouldn't have to put himself into a little box so that he's
Sure.
not deemed, or I'm not deemed as being a threat, as an
Or
undesirable.
hurting somebody's feelings.
I'm just,
Right. So I was coming back to that, cat, the importance of culture in the context of the
mm,
therapist and
mm-hmm,
the content that's presented in therapy. But I want to stick just for a moment with uh, Sister Karen said, the idea of voice and how we then go into places and we start talking like this so that we're not seen so we begin to ask questions as we're talking because we don't want you to think that, right? So we engage in
yeah,
parroting a population
Mm.
parrots trying to navigate a space. And so I will be clear this, Kat, what you were saying about with not prejudice. The issue is about speaking the truth does not necessarily have to be equated with being filled with hatred, right? My response to something that's coming against me is not the problem. Just as if you're stepping on my toe and I say, ouch, I'm not the problem. This is a moment
mm,
where we say, hey, ouch. And so we don't have to, we have to stop apologizing and just been say, here is what it is. And the thing is that I have to become unlike myself. So I have to move my voice. So my voice
mhm.
doesn't sound intimidating. But how much control do over my voice making you feel threatened? I can't make you feel threatened. You decide to feel threatened by
That
this,
threatens.
right?
There,
You
yeah.
decide that I'm a threat because I see because the issue around black women and hair, because a black woman loves her hair, she loves herself, which means she's going to have power. You're not concerned about the hair. You're concerned about the fact that the person is empowered to see themselves as having value and worth in the world, right? And
Yeah.
because their position is predicated upon this, this is facts. The position is predicated upon somebody being subordinate to them. That's why we have the whole language is around subordination. So if I don't have anybody to be subordinate to me, for them, right? This is so. What is my purpose? What is my function? We're the best, the
Mm,
only, the greatest, right? And so then we play into that by trying not to be intimidating. Well, if my skin is the thing and I didn't choose it, right? then we got to live in this space and we got to be it. And this is the thing that we talk about, embracing the power and presence that you have. And
Yeah.
you have to decide. I told my daughters that I have a private practice. When I was getting started in Orlando, and I said, well, I'm gonna hire some a white receptionist, a white or two, and before I hire her and him, I have to make sure that their hair is curly enough so that they can work for me. They were like, what? I said, let's make sure the hair is curly enough. So if they get curly enough, then they can work for me. They're like, that doesn't make any sense. I said the same thing I want you to remember in life. That it doesn't
That's
make sense to have to straighten your hair
Have
to
to
work for
straighten your
somebody else.
hair.
If I don't make sense, right? Saying what I just said, that doesn't make sense either. And what I was saying earlier is that to become unlike ourselves is satisfying to the population, but it leaves us in a space where we don't know who we are and we are perpetually in a state of
Oh,
mental illness, which leads to
yes,
physical illness. And so the dynamics of freedom is to be able to fully articulate, this is who I am. I had a
yes.
situation working with a person just recently within the workspace, and the views I'm sharing, of course, is not the views of the VA. I just want to say that um, the person mentioned something about uh, a person coming from the Caucasus Mountains, getting out of a car with a assault rifle, going into Walmart, and so I got out of my car because I knew my family was inside, and I got on my go-go. He has a little cart. He scooted in. He said, and Doc, I was packing, right, and so he said I went in and I followed him, and I said, well, tell me if I was wrong. He said, tell me if I was wrong. I said, no, I get you. I got it. That's what you're doing. So I kept following the story. He stopped and appreciated it and said, I'm so grateful. I said, I prayed for somebody like you that would understand. I wouldn't not have to explain to myself what I was doing. I made the connection between the trauma that he had experienced, racism in the military, and what he was seeing right there was a trigger for him because it's about the racism again
Yeah, yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
replaying itself. And so he didn't have to explain and
Explain.
justify what he was saying. This is why it's important also for us to be on the therapeutic side, so we don't have to explain certain things.
Yes.
Some person said this just recently as well. I'm sharing mode. I take over, but I want to share this though. A female, she said something about makeup and putting makeup on, and my sister said something about makeup, and I look better with the makeup, and she said something else, and then she said something about a sister being they're lighter than I am. And so I heard that in the earlier session. So it came up again this session. Then she said it again that they're lighter than them. I said, hold on. I said, wait, can they pass? Right. And so in the Black community, we know what passing mean, right?
That's
And
Yes,
so
right.
yes.
so she said, well, as a matter of fact, I got questions about something. All right. I got questions about parenting because they are a product of my mother being raped by a white man. These are facts. This is not something I'm making up, right? And
Yeah,
this is stuff
yeah,
I've
yeah,
heard
yeah.
also
Yeah, yeah.
in Louisiana. So within my own family, right? So of that happening, and so now we have what the dynamics of colorism playing
Mm-hmm.
itself out.
Mm-hmm.
Would a white therapist would have known to go in on that one, which then led to part of the dynamics of this person being sexually traumatized and a mother being traumatized. And so we have generational discourse of sexual trauma overlapping with racism and oppression tied to colorism, which tied to hair and everything else, because there was mention of a family member that was ugly, and
Mm.
said my one of my parents is dark, and dark is the car tire, right? Dark, okay. And
Mm-hmm.
then was my grandmother was ugly. I said, so we're saying that dark and ugly are the same thing. They're synonymous.
Mm. That
Mm-hmm.
they're
What are
synonyms.
we doing? Right? So
Yeah.
so we pulling in what? The idea of colorism, we pulling in self-perception, identity, we pulling in dynamics of assault. All those things are coming into the because why? If you feel devalued, you allow yourself to be
Yes.
what run over, to be taken advantage of.
Yeah.
And so
Mm-hmm.
would a white therapist would have known to go in on that theme in the Black community of hair texture, because hair was a conversation as well, skin complexion, they would not have known. Why? Because it's not their reality. And when I shared it with my class about the narrative, and the closing was this: the the sister said that I was 50 years old before I saw what my hair looked like, right? Because it was,
Mm-hmm.
the issue of the straightening comb and then the
Yeah, yeah,
chemicals
yeah.
and
Mm-hmm.
then
And
right,
relaxing it. Yeah.
and right.
Mm-hmm.
And so she said I
Oh,
was,
yeah.
and so the white student was like, I can't imagine not ever haven't seen my hair. I can't imagine, right? And they were
I know
perplexed
you
by
can.
this, right? And so the
Mm-hmm.
point was, you don't know who we are. What you see is a caricature that is
Oh,
acceptable
Mm-hmm.
wow.
to you, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we teach them, you don't have to understand this. If you talk about that, there's a God, then you don't have to recreate it. It's just an image of somebody else, another human being. Be what God made you to be, right?
That's right.
But but if we try to become unlike ourselves, to become liked by somebody else who would never like us, right?
Facts.
Where do you find the rape victim trying to be liked by the rapist?
Mm.
Mm. Oh,
Okay,
wow.
You just
so we
dropped
Wow.
it
have a
right
lot of these.
there.
So this therapeutic process then is about freedom. So that's why we talk about
Mm.
Ubuntu psychotherapy. It's about liberation. The work that we do is about liberating people so they can jump from explaining stuff to getting clarity to live in their power and purpose.
And
Mm-hmm.
so you mentioned, is it Ubuntu psychotherapy?
Two, yes. Hmm.
So that would be a different school of thought than like a Freudian type of therapy. Can you explain the difference between traditional, because I took some psychology when I was in undergrad. I was a human resources major, and a good bit of that was psychology and sociology. And so we had to, we learned about Freud and what's the other cat's name? All these different,
All of the other ones that are
yeah,
non-black.
yeah, all of their therapeutic philosophies and techniques. And so I had never heard of what you had just mentioned. Can you kind of explain like what would be some differences in the modes of therapy? Because I know Freud takes wants to take you back from like your childhood and bring you forward and how that relates to the things that you're doing now and that type of therapy. Uh, so can you kind of explain the therapy that you're doing and how it differentiates from what we've traditionally known as therapy? You're on mute, Doc. You muted
I'm asking
yourself.
Cat, can I speak? Can I
All right.
speak, Cat?
Please
To
let
make
it
sure
flow.
I can. Okay, I just want to make sure I can speak in this moment. So I wanted to say that thank you for asking the question. Right. So Freud actually studied some of the constructs and concepts that came out of ancient Kemet. So we talk about
Mm,
traditional psychology. We have to recognize that the origins and nascence of psychology is actually within the space of what some would call Kemet or Egypt, and
yes,
Mm-hmm.
so
yes.
that is in Africa. So the reality is that this
They stole
is
it already.
the that's it. It's already stolen, right? And so, for example, the notion of dream is what he also did.
Yeah.
We see evidence that they did the same thing in ancient Kemet. They had the sanitariums where people would come together and share their dreams and talk
Yes.
things through, and that they would talk about cures as being miracles, and that they said that a whole and sound mind led to prosperity, good health, and it led to a good life. So they were very clear about
Yeah.
the clarification, clearing of the mind to be able to
Hmm.
elevate one's consciousness to have a good life.
Yes.
That's it. So a whole and sound
Hmm. Because who didn't have
third
a King
eye,
Tut dream book?
right there, right, all of this, right? So they studied these things. Carl Gustav Jung studied the Sangomas in South Africa. These are the traditional healers. We know this part because he spent time with one of his cousins who was practicing to be a Sangoma. And so we can see that the collective unconscious theory comes out of the system of thought that's among
Hmm.
the Zulu, right? And so
Yes, yes,
so
yes.
Ubuntu is really about the idea of connectedness, right? The Zulu
Mm-hmm.
have a proverb that says Ubuntu ugamuntu ugabantu, which says a person is a person because there are other people. That I have identity in the context of other people. It's not about me. Yes, I can identify, I can share my dreams, I can talk about the unresolved conflicts of my childhood. That's Sigmund Freud stuff as well.
Hmm.
And I can I can share about that, and I can unfold it. And I believe that there's certain things that happen to us throughout childhood that is imperative. However, when we talk about Ubuntu, it says that my humanity is tied to your humanity, that we're going to be human together, which means
Mm,
everything we do is connected.
it's
Now think about the
connected.
proverbs or the statements that our family said, and we have not talked about this. We have not talked. I have not spoken this, but we know statements like, "Don't let your name beat you back home. Don't go out
Mm,
there and
right?
embarrass us." Right?
Right.
All things work together for the good. Right? All of
Good, we
these
love
things are
right?
Ubuntu concepts. Right? They're saying
Yeah.
that everything is connected. We would go visit somebody and they say, "Yeah, how your mama and them?" Right? So
Yeah,
Yep.
right?
how who was the nim that they were talking about? Right?
Nah.
All
How's
your
your mama?
folks.
How your mama and them? And we knew what that meant, right? Well, she all
Mhm.
right, but Mookie though, he out there on that
Right.
stuff. Well, tell your mama I'm coming by to bring us some greens. Now, what do
Yeah.
greens have to do with Mookie out there on that stuff? Right? It makes no sense until you understand the dynamics of the
We were
spirit of
feeding that
healing.
soul.
Because
We're
because what's happening is that as I engage in cooking those greens, I'm going to have an incantation over those greens. I'm going to pray over those greens. I'm going to send some energy to those greens to give it what? So give it essence. So when I get to the house, well, here's your greens, baby. I heard. And then if she said, well, come, y'all come on in. I'll put this on the pot. So I put them on the stove. Say, put them on the stove, right? They're coming in. It opens a what now for a conversation. Now we're
yes.
talking about what community, Ubuntu, connectedness, right? So, and then we may eat the greens before we leave, or we may not. But
Mm,
before we leave, we're gonna get into a circle and do what? And we're gonna pray for Mookie, right? Again, it is community, it is connectedness, and so we talk then about this is what we have done on the continent of Africa. We see it in the kind of uh, uh, Iwiyani Adanda, which is a concept among the Igbo, which talks about it for an ant. The work is not hard. It says that because ants come together collectively, we see it in a variety of constructs on the continent about connectivity. Collectivity is
mm,
what keeps us going. It's the thing that kept us alive in this space in the hills of North America. So we then bring that type of therapy to the fore and say, how do we look at the dynamics of what it means to be connected? And how it came to me very clearly was I was doing some research in South Africa, doing a Fulbright research study, and we came across a discussion about gangs. And with discussion about gangs, we recognized that the gangs could exist among the coloreds. The coloreds are a combination of traditional indigenous African populations, that is Zulu, Ola, Ndebele, Swana, Roy trekkers are the Europeans. And so we would call them mulattoes, I guess, in the United States.
mhm.
So these coloreds are a combination of that. Now are too dark to be an Africana, but they're too elite in their heads to be traditional Africans. So they create their own society. They want to be something else. And
Yes.
so among them, the gangs exist. But it said that it was a why among the others. It says because they may imitate Black Americans for a moment. That's what they call us, right? But then we tell them, remember, you're Zulu. Remember,
Mm,
you were Swana. Remember, you were Osa, right? Remember, you're in the belly, right? And so when they tell them this, they're saying that remember, you come from something, and that's what they said in Lion King. Lion King says in Earl Graves, James Earl Jones said, "What? Know who you are." Right? When you know who you are, he's saying when you know who you are, when you know your connection to the universe, it allows you to move differently within it. So Ubuntu is about knowing who you are, about knowing that you are connected, about knowing that
love
you are full,
that.
by operating in that. And so it shifts the paradigm for service delivery because it says that when you understand the connectivity of yourself to all things around you, then you don't have to ask permission to be. You simply rise up and stand in it. So one, all things have a desire to move towards something like itself to make itself greater than itself, right? That's
Right.
premise one, right? So you find a trickle of water, it finds another trickle to get bigger, to find a larger stream. A stream then finds a river finds a lake or ocean, right? So it's always finding this thing that's bigger than
Yeah.
itself. So we find connections, so start joining gangs to feel bigger, to feel
Mm,
better than they have not been, right? So this idea of connectivity is there. Also, life attracts to it what it needs to be fulfilled, right? So we find ways to connect that to us, and so we end up being in places with folks. As let's go back to this conversation. We're in a restaurant and we attract to one another. We're in the same
Yeah.
space. Now, while we're at the same time, don't have an idea. We didn't ask to be there. I didn't ask to meet you, but in somewhere in our soul and our spirit, it was to say that you all need to go here. And as a result, the conversation led to the attraction. And
Yes.
then we expressions of greatness, right? Beyond that. So
Yes.
those are the basic premises that we talk about. And we recognize first and foremost that spirit is in all things. So Ubuntu is comprised of UBU, which is a being, and into, which is unifying life force. So it says a being that is filled with unifying life force. And so there's one thing I have to share this, and I'll be quiet, is that there's this thing called Bapanze Basifulateli, which is withdrawal of ancestral protection. It is one
Mm.
of the Bantus. Akufa Kwabantu is a metaphysical illness of the Bantu or the people, is how I learned it. And so this Afrikaner who's studying Zulu said that it means the illnesses of the people. And so I wasn't comfortable with that. So I asked this sister who was in the belly, who was Swana, who was closer. And I said, is this true, Mercy, that this concept means illnesses of the people? She says, yes. I said, so you mean to tell me that Afrikaners can have these disorders? Afrikaners, of course, the
white
white. She
people.
says, oh no, you have to be human to have these disorders, right? And it clicked, right? It was the idea of Bantu stands for this idea of humanity in the context of what we consider to be blackness. So we define humanity very differently, right? If you can suggest to me that putting tires on somebody, stacking them up, put them in car tires, and stacking them up and set them on fire is barbarism. If you can tell me that lynching somebody and cutting their testicles and their ears off and putting it in a jar in a store is humanity, then what is barbarism, right? If you can suggest to me that the idea of mistreating the population, of raping and maiming the population is humanity, then I need to understand more clearly what is barbarism, right? And so we have to note then that we're clear about what it means to be human, and that humanity goes across the continent to say that no, their actions are not human in our context, right? Because Ubuntu says we cooperate with one another. It says that we understand that we show love and compassion. We understand that whatever you do in your space impacts my space. So I'm not going to go out there and embarrass us, because when I embarrass myself, we're all included, right? It's a different way of seeing it. Even talk about black fraternities and sororities. They ask the question, well, why do you all have sororities where you're not in college anymore? Because it is still about community.
Community,
Yes.
Yes.
Church community, religion community. What happened in Lithonia, the farmers market community. It's about how do we connect. So Ubuntu is about restoration of the connectedness that we have, not only with ourselves, but that which we have with one another, and that which is greater than ourselves at the same time.
Ourselves. I know that's
Dr.
right.
Kiari, I feel like you just preached a word.
Listen, I'm ready to sign up for a class. Where I need to go? I do want you to say, could you say the saying again? I was trying to write it down. You said
Umuntu, Ugamuntu, Ugabantu.
And say it, what it means.
Umuntu, Ugamuntu, Ugabantu. I don't know what I just said now. I was in a row.
You said our people, your people, our people, and because you are around people.
A person is a person because there were other people. There it is.
There you go.
A person because there are other people. It's a person with other people because there's another take on that among the Xhosa, which is very similar about a person is because others are there, right? And so if we think about an example, I asked students, if I'm in this classroom and you all are not here, am I a teacher and or instructor or professor? And they say yes. I say, but it's not possible, because if you're not here, I'm just a person in the room. Just as if you are in this room and I'm not here, you are not students. You become students when I show up, and I become a professor so that's the connection that we have. My children raised me to be a parent, a father, right? and they
Mm-hmm.
raised me as I'm to raise them. So when we understand humanity in that context, is that I have profound identity within the context of where I find myself. That my value and worth is in the public sphere, not within myself. I'm not
Mm-hmm.
simply dope because of me. If I can shoot basketball extremely well on the court by myself all night long with the street lights, it doesn't even matter. But when
Mm.
I do that
Right.
on the court, right, you follow me, right? But if I do that on the court with a team that have like-minded people with the bright lights on, now it has a whole new meaning. Like, wow, this is amazing because
Mm-hmm.
now my ability elevates another level because what of other people, and
Others.
so
That's right.
Yes.
we recognize then that we are people because of others. And so people suggest that there's the phrase sawubona means I see you, and among the Zulu,
Mm-hmm.
and at
Mm-hmm.
some level it does, and then it doesn't, because the word bona comes from sawubona comes from this word bukona. Bukona means presence, and presence comes out of the context of the fact that are you connected to those that came before you, right? Are you
Mm-hmm.
connected to those that are around you? Are you connected with those that are yet to come? And so if you don't have a connection, then you're not present. So
Mm.
you will suffer from what's called abapandabasifilotele, which is withdrawal of ancestral protection, because you're not doing proper umzabezi or ritual and ritual connection. What ritual are we talking about? Well, one ritual, we sit at the table and we pray. That's a ritual. Brothers drink and get ready to drink something on the corner. They pour one for the brothers out here. That's ritual. That's umzabezi. What, to bring about connection, all
Yes.
right, and
Mm-hmm.
while we are here. So we do these things quite often. But if you say that, yes, so it means I see you, but I see you only to the extent that you have a presence. You're present only to the extent that you are connected, which goes back to the question of how your mama and them. It's the same question.
Yes. Yes.
Question. So the question is, if you cannot explain to me about your connectivity to those around you, then I don't see you. So I'm asking, how is your mother and those tied to her? Because
Yes.
if they're
Yes.
connected, they're joined, I see her. So when they say Mookie is out there on that stuff, okay, she is broken. She is not really
Yes.
visible.
Yes.
Till I'm coming over to increase, to enhance her
Yes.
presence in the world,
Yes.
right?
Mm-hmm.
By what? By mending it. So we see all these times of the work, and people say, well, it's really a strange way of looking at therapy. No, it's not. It's real. It's real
Yeah.
to a population.
Because when you look at the connectivity that you speak of in the therapy session, it's important to be able to relate to that. And I can
Yes.
see how it all comes together as what you're saying. And there's no disrespect if you don't know that piece, but it would behoove everybody in that space to do a little research so you can understand
Dig a
where,
little deeper.
dig a
Dig a
little
little
deeper.
deeper.
Because the
And
VA
and
have Black therapists. I'm sorry, they did a movement to retain, because I get my therapy from the VA, and they did a movement to get more Black licensed professionals so that they can address the need of having Black professionals care for their Black veterans.
yes. And I think about Dr. Kiara, what the things that you're saying, like so many like light bulbs were going off in my head. We collectively and historically have thought community and collective wise, right? And so when a lot of times when we've moved, when we have done things, it's about what's good for the collective, what's good for the community, not just about how do I how do I make it better for me? How do I make it better for everybody around me?
Mm-hmm.
And when you were talking, Dr. Kara, what I was thinking about was that song by Hezekiah Walker, I Need You to Survive. The words are like, I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's body. So whether or not you call him God, you call him Yahweh, you call him whatever you call the spiritual force that you may believe in, you might just call it nature. But it's that connectedness that you're talking about, that we're all a part of this. And we can move in unison, and a lot of the work that Black people do in these spaces for community is about the collectiveness of the entire group. How do I make it better How do I make my community better for Kat? How do I make my community better for Dr. Chiari? How can I, get the resources that I need so that I can show up better in the world?
That's
And
right.
that's part of what therapy is, right?
Mm-hmm.
We go to therapy, our loved ones go to therapy so that they can show up in the world a better version of themselves, a
That's
more enlightened version of themselves. It's not
a
about
healthier
changing who you are,
version, a
a better,
healthier
a
self.
healthier, yes,
That's right.
thank you, sis. A
Yeah,
healthier version of who they are.
that's
Yes,
right.
yeah.
Love
I,
it.
I love this entire conversation because you were dropping nuggets and the thought about losing the protection of the ancestors. I pray to the ancestors. I have a table
Right.
in my living room, that big round table over in the corner, Cat, that
Uh-huh.
has pictures of um, my parents who have passed on. It has pictures of
Mhm.
aunts and uncles who've passed on. And over on my piano, I have my grandparents' pictures and a picture of
Mhm.
a great grandfather. And I talk to them. And when
Yes.
I have finished my prayers in the morning, I talk to the ancestors and I ask them for their covering, I ask them for their protection and to be with me and to
Mhm.
guide me and to guide my children because I really believe that like my ancestors come with me. Who's it? Maya Angelou who said I come as one, but I stand as one, but I come with
Something
10,000.
like that.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
I believe that they walk with me
So
every day.
that's one of the interventions that we have in the book that's coming out on Ubuntu psychotherapy. It's coming due to be released this month, so we're excited about that. But we
Please
talk about
tell us about the
I
name
know.
of the book
Wait,
so
you
I can
gotta
get
say
it.
when the book about to release. Don't go over that, doctor.
wait. But it wasn't about the book. It was simply saying. I was just dropping that. I was just saying. See,
No,
but I want to say
you
this.
can't just say. You have to tell us about the
Yeah,
book.
I will. I will. But I really not. But and I want to say this.
Okay.
One of the interventions is about of altars and our shrines. And my
Hmm.
question to you is, who did you see do what you did about putting the pictures up and so on? How did you know to do that?
Um, so I've been in other people's homes, and so I have friends in other cultures. I have some Haitian friends who've done it. I have some African friends who've done it, and they put these things there. And also, when my parents died, I had like, and even so, my father's birthday was February 26th. So for his birthday, because he used to play the lottery, so I went out and he used to drink Budweiser. So I went out, I got a Budweiser, I got a lottery ticket, and I put that there and some pork rinds, and I have it there on the table. And for my
Mhm.
mother, I got some things for her on her birthday. And so it was my offering to them. And I know
Yeah.
that other cultures do that as well. And that was my way of honoring their memory. The first year that they passed, I set a place at the table for them.
Mhm.
That was a little bit too emotional for me. So
Mhm.
I just started giving them little gifts on their
Mhm.
birthdays. So,
Yes.
and that's my
Yes.
So
way of honoring
that's
them.
all right. So and there's another thing, Karen, that Big Mama, Mud Dead and them used to
Mhm.
have pictures in the house in certain places.
Yes.
They were doing the same thing. They used to have grown up. I don't know. Both grandparents had they had this velvet rug or something with Martin Luther King on it,
Yep. And
and one
Martin
had
Luther
John
King
F. Kennedy on
Jr.
it, right?
and John F. Kennedy.
Right, right. All of these things, and both of them. Now, remember, both of them at the time it was done. Both of them were deceased. See,
Hmm.
all of these are ritual. These are activities of connectivity have been passed on. We knew that that thing was very important. And this is why we talk about an altar in our shrine is essential. That's the first right? To make sure that you have a connection. Oh, spooky. What's spooky about that? The dead you don't have to be afraid of. It's living that's just trying to hurt you, right? So when you recognize that life is not simply about here. See, the
Yeah.
worldview of African people suggests that we are past, present, and future at the same time,
That's
right?
right.
So I am. I'm here, but I'm also, as you mentioned about Maya Angelou, I come with these many thousands.
That's it.
That's
And
right.
I'm speaking for those, as you said earlier, Karen, I'm speaking for those yet to come, right?
Yes.
See,
That's right.
that's past, present, and future existence. It's the same thing caught up in the phrase of stay woke, right? If you understand stay woke is past participle and present about the future. Listen what it just said. So stay woke, woke is past participle, right? So it means it really would be
Mhm.
stay awakened, right?
Mhm.
To remain
Mhm.
awakened, to remain right. But stay woke, woke past participle means that some stuff has happened in the past, it's happening right now, and it could happen in the
And you
future.
need to
So
be
even
vigilant.
in the phrasing, be vigilant. We know that with past, present, and future, the shrines are past, present, and future as well, right? And so these things are important. That is proper ritual.
Yes.
Everybody engages in ritual like that, with the exception of us. You cannot go and spend a US dollar without them having their image of their ancestor in a circle
Mm,
on it.
mm,
Okay.
mm.
So, and go to the buildings and go to Washington, D.C., and you will go around Logan Circle and you go around this circle and that circle, all kind of stuff. They are engaging in ancestral veneration every single day. We don't do it because they know that when they disconnect us from that ritual, we will lose our power. The Zulus say you must always understand how to do proper ritual, or you'll have abapanze asifulatele, which is withdrawal of ancestral protection because
Mm.
you failed to do proper ritual, right? And so is that so? The book Ubuntu Psychotherapy is the first of three. We have worked out something with this company to do at least three. One is on the theory of it in general. What does it mean? How does it function? And it's nothing new. It's just simply some words to what it is that we do, and so I'm excited to be able to share that. And it's
Mhm.
about how do we treat Nkufa Kwabantu or transgenerational trauma within African people. So it's entitled, I believe
Mm.
it's Ubuntu Psychotherapy and Addressing Transgenerational Trauma Among African Black People, right? So because we know that that stuff gets passed on in the genes. Epigenetics tells us about the inheritability of trauma traits, right? So we
Yes.
talk about that. And the second one is on Black men,
Mm.
a cat. So it's about mental health and interventions for Black men, and the third one is to be on Black folks in relationships. And of
Mhm.
course, we have the frame out for Black women in mental health. So that's number four, but we gotten three to be approved, and we have
Praise
written up most of the content. So that's why so that's the what. The when is again in this month of July. We're still working through some copy editing pieces.
God.
I just got the word today that I had always envisioned if I ever did a book or when I did a book, this brother's artwork would appear on the cover. He is
Mm.
phenomenal to me. His name is Larry Puncho Brown out of Baltimore.
Larry
You look up
Pancho Brown.
you look up Larry Puncho Brown .net or something like that. And look up Larry Puncho Brown. You see his
I
artwork.
net. That's right.
He is phenomenal. And I asked him to do some work for the ABC right before I became president. He did that artwork for one of our anniversaries. But he is phenomenal. So I said I would love for his art to appear on the cover of the book. And he's like, "What's the artwork?" And so he said, "Yes, that's him.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
sharing
That's
his
that's
my man."
beautiful.
website. That's beautiful.
Right? And
That is,
so that's him. The brother is phenomenal, and so his he just agreed today. They signed the release for
oh,
his
that's
image. One of his
beautiful.
images
Yeah.
book one. So
Okay.
I'm
That's
excited because
beautiful.
his images speaks to the healing of our people, right? As
Oh,
you
Mm.
said, it's
yes.
beautiful. And this
And
Yes.
first
so,
one has a family together in
mhm.
a circle, and
Mm.
they have a Dinka symbols on them from Ghana. The symbols all mean something powerfully, and they're together. You actually can feel Ubuntu and the healing. So that's
Mm.
I
what
love
I'm
Yes.
it.
working on.
Yeah.
And so if our listeners or viewers want to get in contact with you, what's the best space that they can reach you through?
One of the things is to I would love support around uh, the Instagram piece is Mwata.01, MWATA.01. M is in Michael, W as in water, A as in apple, T as in Tom, A as in apple, Mwata.01. but also we are diligently working on uh, new material for our YouTube channel called Speak Black to Me. And what
Oh.
we're doing with Speak Black to Me is that we're looking at ways to raise funds for or create this funding stream for work that we're doing in the Gambia and also within the United States of elevating consciousness. So we're looking at community building. We have opportunities to facilitate skill centers being built in that space where people can learn skills to be able to build houses as folks move and relocate there. So right, you want to
Mhm.
relocate or find your retreat center. We are training our folks over there to build the space so you have your space over there and here. You have to buy your space over in England or
Wow.
some other place to have your vacation home. You have your vacation spot there, or you can choose to live there in the Gambia. The Gambia is a space of Kunta Kinte, the narrative that
Yes.
Alex Haley,
Yep.
some say explored. Others say that he brought to light. But the point we're making here is that we have that connection with the elder of that community, Takotal, renamed me Karamo
Mm.
Naso, right?
Mm.
And so that's the name of her son. So she calls me that person when I'm there, Karamo Naso. And I asked the question, what does Karamo mean? This woman does not speak English, and she did not very well, clearly. So we don't speak the same. So she speaks Mandinka. So I'm having to go back and forth, but I have a translator.
Mhm.
She didn't really know what I did for real,
Mhm.
but she knew that I was there. She felt something. She named me Karamo Naso. Karamo means one who teaches those, one who people come to study from. Now,
Mm.
how would she know that if spirit didn't tell her that, right?
I know, right?
Yeah.
Right, and it's what I'm
Love
doing. I
it.
was a college professor. She did not know anything about professor, but she says you are Karamo. You are
You
one
are
that
one who
people come to
teaches.
But you
Ah.
and
know
teaches,
what?
right?
That's God, and that's so important how our spirits are connected. I mean, just even with like how we met
Mhm.
I'm
some
saying, come. We take people over. We want to make people to come over, and there's a brother there. You would look this up right here. You pull this up since you're pulling up things so quickly,
we real with our
judiciously.
research.
And so the brother's name is Mali Salah. He has 5 hotels, but the one that I find easily is going to be uh, Tamala, the Tamala Hotel,
So that's a
Tamal, Tamala,
hotel
Tamala. Yes,
that's in Sarakunda, the Gambia.
yes, Serakunda Gambia. Yes,
We gonna have a
his
good
name is
summer.
Mali Salah, and he has a powerful, outstanding resort hotels, and we carry people over. Well, yeah, I got a lifestyle. Okay, well, we're going to give you this lifestyle and take it to the community.
Oh, that is
And
gorgeous.
That is
that is
beautiful.
that is that is Tamala Hotel. That's a resort hotel
Oh,
on the ocean. There's my room. There, I see my room. Y'all don't know my room, but I see it. So anyway,
that
uh,
is gorgeous.
beautiful place.
That is absolutely
And
beautiful.
next to it is another hotel called Kanumba. They share the same space,
Okay.
and so but is doing so. He's one of our sponsors for Homecoming Gambia. That's every other year. We had it this year marginally. We do it again in 2026. But we in between time we carry people over for their connection and rites of passage activities. So we'll do it
Mhm.
again in May around Liberation Day, May 25th ish or so in 2025. So I'm just saying that this is some of the work that we're doing. We're also doing some work beginning to connect in Ghana as well as Senegal. So we're
Oh,
building, making connections for the healing work to take.
I love it. And you
I
can
love
also be reached via your website. We can't neglect that.
Okay, that's one. And then empowerment.
And
And
that's
then the
spelled
other one, yes, there it is. You got it.
NYAPOEMPOWERMENT.com.
And then Sapo is a Dinkra symbol, which means that the knot of wisdom is only eyes. And
Ah.
so the idea is that the reason why we call it Insapo is because
Mhm.
for our counseling and therapy process, we often have knots. These knots in among the Bantu are called kolo, but we have knots, and so the only way that you can untie these knots
Hmm.
is that you have some wisdom, some insight to be able to tie these knots in your life.
Wow.
So you all were
Mm,
saying about how do I get the better show. So that's why it's called Ensemble. It's so complicated, I know, but it means something.
No,
So
it
learn
makes
to learn to
sense
mean
though
something.
when you break it down. Like it's just
yes.
when you break it down, it's just like what? That's why we were like we
Yeah.
have to have you on the show because you
And
you you take information that has been told to us, fed to us for right generations, and you are able to break it down so when we can have that
Make
aha
it
moment.
plain.
And that's real important. And that's why it's important to have somebody who's culturally competent and can understand why it's so important to us. It's not to threaten or take away from anybody else, but it's very important for us to own who we are because
Yes.
we've been denied
mm,
who we are for centuries. So I boldly and proudly and peacefully, right? It doesn't mean that I'm angry because I'm proud of who I am and where I came from.
Yes.
and there we
And
go, apologize again for being bold, but being proud, right? And
You know,
I get it, right,
like people want to
right,
say, I
right,
apologize. No.
right. Like I'm angry. No, I'm not angry. I am who I am, and if I speak emphatically about something, that's how I talk. I talk. They don't talk to me. But anyway, I want to say, I'll say this also. Mawata speaks. Mawata speaks is also the other one. MWA speaks. www.mawataspeaks.com. Mawataspeaks.com.
that's the other
Uh,
website.
Perfect.
yes, that's the
So,
one.
family,
And we
make sure
have
you check out my brother. He is awesome and all over the place doing
Yes.
great things. And check out his book. Check him out speaking. Maybe we could sign up for your class. I mean, we
let's
need
Yes.
get the class going.
to.
I love that you've given us so many nuggets, brother. You really have. And this was informational, this was powerful, impactful. And I just like we enjoyed that conversation when we met you that Saturday, this
Yeah,
was the continuation of along the same lines.
yeah.
And we want to thank you so much because we know that this is not the last time we're going to be talking to you.
Mm-mm.
Like we're gonna have you on again. Yeah, because when your books drop, you're gonna have to hit us up on hit us up on the phone and say,
It'll
hey,
be done.
the book
What are
dropped.
you thinking,
Well,
Cat?
we'll be
You
back
thinking
on.
something, Cat? What are you thinking, Cat? You thought something, Cat? I saw you.
You, I got a lot of thoughts, but we can't keep it. Look, we got to keep it short and have you on part two because I would love to talk more about the successes that you had as a therapist and breakthroughs and helping those of us who have this. It may not be societal trauma. That's what I'm trying to say. Things that are
Mm,
like the George Floyds and Ahmaud Arbery's and how it naturally impacts those of us every day as we walk around, telling our children, how what to do when they're driving cars, like how that impacts
yeah,
us every single
because
day.
that's a multi-part show, right?
Right.
So because we very early on, I asked that question slightly about like dealing with the racism and having a culturally you said cultural
Mm-hmm.
matching
Mm-hmm.
um a therapist. So yeah, that's another conversation in and of
Yeah,
itself.
definitely.
So what you describe is we call it. I mean, I know it's time to go. We call it persistent enslavement, systemic trauma. So
Oh,
we can't have a post anything, right? We talk about post
oh,
traumatic stress disorder. We talk
It's
about
still
post
going
traumatic.
on.
It's still going on. So it's persistent. It's ongoing. Then slavery, the ideology of white supremacy, notions that we and others are inferior. Systemic. It runs through everything that we encounter. A trauma, it
Still going
disrupts our
on.
spirit and our soul. So therefore, it's a pest. Persistent enslavement, systemic trauma, are pest.
Mm,
what?
So we
still
will
going
talk more.
on.
So yes.
Yeah,
Still
that's
got
a
an acronym for a
whole
test. Well, that's gonna be our next episode, pest.
yes, yes.
Hey,
And we're gonna schedule that when we get off too.
yeah.
Um,
Okay.
but for our listeners, thank you for joining us. And as I want to say this, if you have enjoyed this conversation, make sure you like, subscribe, and share. Share
Yes.
this conversation with others. And as always, thank you for joining us on this episode of Conversations with Karen and Kat.
Well, we are impacting the world one conversation at a time.